So now we come to our second session of our first module, Stories and Good Lives. By the end of this session, you'll be able to appreciate the importance of an individual story, and you'll be challenged to become narrators rather than authors. First, we are going to look at this concept that we might be objective. Then we're going to look at the difference between being an author and narrator in terms of somebody else's story. We're then going to consider good lives and how they affect our stories, before finally moving on to the organisational application of these principles. We might think that we live in a culture which is scientific and that we make informed, objective decisions. But is this really the case? Can we really see anything with objectivity? Or do we view the world with a lens? One of the core principles of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, is the phrase, the map is not the territory. That is to say that the representations and ideas we use to navigate our life by and the decisions we make do not necessarily come from an accurate representation or self-understanding of our life or context. To put this another way, people do not in general have access to absolute knowledge of reality, but in fact only have access to a set of beliefs that they have built up over time about reality. Failure can, therefore, often be seen to occur because we have the false notion of objectivity. We are in effect making decisions with flawed information which we consider true. So in our role in working with people, we are to support them in developing self-awareness of what we might consider their take on their situation, their story. And so, first question break. What is your story? What has influenced it? And how has it influenced you? One of the critical principles of a coaching culture is encouraging people to become self-authoring in their approach to life and its challenges. An author gets to write the story rather than have the story written for them. Often when we talk to people who need coaching, they talk in a passive manner, in the sense that life is something that happens to them rather than something they can authentically author. This is not to suggest that there are no limits to our power as our own life authors. We all have experiences where we have no control over what has happened. But critically, we can always author our own response. Taking a coaching approach engages a person in growing their ability to self-author their responses. So what role does this place us in? In some ways, it can be useful for us to consider ourselves a bit like the narrator of a story. One of the roles of a narrator is to highlight the bigger plot context when we are caught up in the detail of a particular scene. A good narrator can help identify the story's point of view. The role of reminder and challenge to contextualisation is an important role for anyone engaging in a coaching approach to practice. We need to make sure we are not becoming the author of the individual story, but instead helping them to challenge the limiting narratives and creating new horizons in the narratives they live through. And on to our next question break. Identify how your role might be similar and different to that of the narrator of a story. So what is a good life? If we're working to nudge and focus self-authoring, it's worth us knowing what a good story might look like to the individual with whom we are working. In this picture, you'll see what a good life might look like for me, but I'm sure that it wouldn't be the same for everybody. This idea of good lives and good stories leans heavily into positive psychology and taking a solution-focused approach. In the words of its founder, Martin Seligman, positive psychology can be defined as a scientific study of optimal human functioning that aims to discover and promote the factors that allow individuals and communities to thrive. In positive psychology, there is a greater focus on what the features of thriving might look like than there is on attributing blame for a situation. One of the most empowering aspects of a coaching approach is that we do not assume we know what is best for the person. Indeed, we recognise that best for them is likely to mean something different to that which is best for us. In the Good Lives model, human dignity, human rights and human agency are promoted through working with an individual to develop the primary goods which will help them develop the good life story. Research by Ward, Brown and Marshall has highlighted 11 classes of primary goods. Life, including healthy living and functioning. Knowledge, how well informed one feels about the things that are important to them. Excellence in play, hobbies and recreational pursuits. Excellence in work, including mastery experiences. Excellence in agency, autonomy, power and self-directedness. Inner peace, freedom from emotional turmoil and stress. Relatedness, including intimate, romantic and familial relationships. Community, connection to wider social groups. Spirituality in the broad sense of finding meaning and purpose in life. Pleasure in feeling good in the here and now. And creativity, expressing oneself through alternative forms. These classes each have a different level of importance to each individual and their relevance to the situation in which you might be working with them in developing their own good life story. And on to our question break. Which of the classes above seem most relevant to your work and to your own story? And add to our final exercise for this module, organisational application. Provide some concrete examples of how you will incorporate the principles of engaging stories and good lives into your practice.